Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 Baruchuni l'shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzeitzechem l'shalom Malachei HaShalom Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is wonderful to be with you here physically or virtually on this very special Shabbat. In this moment, I would like to officially welcome Shabbat by lighting our Shabbat candles, and I invite Joy Fox to come light our candles for us.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled the light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
This is a special and unique Shabbat. Tonight is Erev Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the month of Av. Tisha B'Av is a commemorative holiday, a commemorative day in which we mourn the loss of the temple and many other events that have happened on this date. I also find it important to mention that at this time in Israel there is currently still so much unrest. We don't have to go so far back as our history I don't know if anybody has been watching the news closely, but at this time there have been over 130 rockets that have been sent into Israel in the less than 24 hours, which is concerning for us in particular. Some of our teens are over there at this time, and I'm sure, like many of you, we have family and friends. Depending on where people live, dictates the amount of time they have to get into a bomb shelter. My parents this evening are sleeping in the bomb shelter. This is where I was staying just 2 weeks ago, where things were thankfully quiet. But Tisha B'Av has a historical connection, but we see that history in many ways is still relevant today, and while we still think about Tisha B'Av as a day where our center at the time fell apart, till this day we see a painful hatred in our world, that we are still in pain. So this Shabbat is going to be a sobering one where we get to just not only bring and welcome Shabbat, because Shabbat still happens every week. Shabbat is still our holiday. It happens to coincide with Tisha B'Av, but we still bring in the Shabbat. There is still hope, and that hope always comes every week on Shabbat, no matter what. With that, I invite you to please join us on page 27.
Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my days be as the ones before, lest routine set my ways.
There are some times where we have to call out just a little bit louder in prayer, because we need just that extra oomph, that extra push to feel like our words are being heard, to bring us even closer together. So I invite you to keep that in your heart as we together rise for the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMelech Le'olam Va'ed.
We continue on page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day and to night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv ha'avim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam
may be seated. We continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We continue together at the top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except joining hands, marching together. At this time, I invite you to please rise if you are able and join me for the Amidah on page 46.
Adonai sifatai titach ufi agit tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחיי הכל אתה, רב ופשיעה, מוריד הטל, מחבר חיים בחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מחמולך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממיד ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, בנאמנת לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. You may be seated. I'm so glad Cantor chose to do this prayer. Utefilatam be'ava tekabel, to accept our prayer in love. This happens to be one of my favorite high holiday pieces because I find it so moving, having my prayer accepted. Not only do I have to give my prayer, but it has to be accepted. We give our prayer on Rosh Hashanah, and it is accepted or not accepted on Yom Kippur. And it very much speaks to the words of my sermon this evening, so it's very fresh in my mind. I wanted to make mention of that. I'm glad you shared that with us, Cantor. Thanks. Weep for Zion and for her cities. Jerusalem is like a woman in childbirth. She mourns as a young woman who has lost her husband. Weep for the temple and everything it represents, which was destroyed because of the sins of the people. We continue silently at this moment.
Armon Hashem Itai. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu. Ami Omar Elohechem, Nachamu, Nachamu. Ami Omar Elohechem, comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Omar Elohechem, Nachamu. Ami Yomar Elohechem.
I was thinking about Rabbi Klein's words from last week. I really liked the imagery he used when he talked about the book of Deuteronomy as an insertion between Numbers and the book of Joshua. The book of Deuteronomy, which is the book we're starting this week, reads differently than the rest of the Torah for a myriad of reasons, but one of which is because it delivers Moses' final words, his dvarim, the instructions, laws, warnings, blessings, and curses re-articulated from God. And his words are delivered on the plateau of Moab, east of Jericho, across the Jordan River. And it is according to these words that we derive some of our traditions and rituals and practices that we have until today. And this book, this Torah portion, Dvarim, begins with the following words: Ele hadvarim asher diber Moshe el kol Israel. These are the words that Moses addressed to all of Israel. And I want to just make note, Dvarim and Diber are words with the same shoresh, with the same roots that are linked, which makes the words linked to each other. Dalet, Bet, Resh, Diber. So these are the things, these are the words that are articulated. These words are related. The concepts we say and what we do, our actions, are interrelated and connected. And he addressed all of these things to all of Israel. And in the book of Dvarim, they say that all of Israel, they use all of Israel, a very kind of broad sense of the meaning. It's a discourse referring to the entire book of Deuteronomy. And he shares these words, which the translation presumes that throughout Deuteronomy, Moses is addressing the entire people in his speeches, even though certain topics pertain to certain audience members more than others. But even when he is speaking to a specific group, the Israelites remain a whole. There's something very moving about that notion, that even when only a part of the group is intended to be addressed, they are still seen as one, as a unit. And I'm really in awe of that unity because I wonder what it's like for the Israelites who wandered through the desert to become one, and to arrive to the promised land as one, even though Moses cannot enter the land. And what do they have to do to achieve this kind of oneness that really binds them together? I mentioned last week that while I was in Israel, I completed some courses with some really inspiring and wonderful educators. And we had the privilege of studying with a Yemenite poet by the name of Adi Kaysar. Adi was born in Jerusalem, and now she lives in Tel Aviv. And her family emigrated to Israel in the 60s, at the time where Mizrahi Jews were not treated the way Ashkenazi Jews were treated, and were often discriminated upon. And much of these lingering sentiments still hold true today. And Adi shared that when her family first set foot into Israel, they didn't believe her grandfather was Jewish, and asked him at the immigration office to chant Torah in order to prove it. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but how many of you, maybe just Cantor Sibo? Thankfully, he was able to do it, and they continued into Israel, but the discrimination followed them nonetheless. And Adi says that she always knew she was different from her Ashkenazi friends and classmates, but didn't pick up on the nuances or biases until much, much later in life. And her poetry interweaves this notion of being outside or of being differentiated. I found Adi's poetry to be very moving. Her words are simple to understand as she tells her story. She has a unique cadence to her voice, staccato, very fast reading. And when I asked her if that's how I should read her poetry out loud when I share it with my community, she said, no, you should read it in your voice. And when she thought of that, it actually made me think of our Passover Haggadah, that we must feel as if we were slaves in Egypt and we were there. And in the same way, I felt like Adi was saying that each reader must put themselves into her poetry. And I'd actually like to share the first poem that she recited for us. It's called Black on Black. And this is a translated version. Her poems are originally in Hebrew. My grandmother loved me with a thick accent, spoke to me in Yemenite words I never understood. And as a child, I remember how scared I was to stay alone with her out of fear that I wouldn't understand the tongue in her mouth, which she kept singing to me with a smile. I didn't understand a single word she said, the sounds far, far away, even when she spoke closely. Once I remember she bought me a pineapple yogurt, and after I punched a hole with my thumb in the thin aluminum lid and drank it, I wanted to say thank you, but didn't know which language to use. So I went to the big garden, plucked a flower, and handed it to her sheepishly. I remember how much awkwardness stood between us of one blood and two muted tongues. She washed the yogurt cup silently, filled it with water, and placed the flower in it. I never understood a word she said, my grandmother, but I understood her hands, I understood her flesh, even though she never really understood the words I said and simply loved my little body, the daughter of her daughter. And sometimes the heart asks strange things for itself, like to learn Yemenite and turn to her grave, lay lips on the earth and cry into it, all that that little girl had to say, and mainly to warn her that the flower I had given her was full of ants. When Adi finished her reading, we all smiled and took a pause to internalize her words as we heard the background of the Jerusalem streets outside. And Adi has become kind of a minor celebrity in Israel. The impact of her poetry on Israeli society has gone so much farther than she ever thought. And she's become somewhat nationally known in Israel, has hosted poetry reading events with thousands of people in attendance, all ages, sizes, colors, genders. But what's so striking about her poetry is how she managed to bridge gaps between people in an unexpected way. She recounted a time where a Russian Ashkenazi immigrant came up to her after a reading and profusely thanked her for her words. He said that he could totally relate to her experience. And she admitted to him and then to us that she was somewhat surprised and maybe even a little bit perplexed, to say the least, that an Ashkenazi Russian immigrant found her Yemenite story relatable. This was hardly the demographic she thought would find so much in common with. But he came back saying, "I felt the emotion of your poem. The feelings exuded from your words are universal and can be understood by anybody." His parents were also immigrants, and in his experiences, he also felt like an outsider very often. Adi has created an incredible movement in Israel, and I will be teaching a class on her poems in the spring. I hope you will join me for that. She has raised so much awareness around discrimination of Mizrahi Jews, which are Jews from the Middle East or North Africa. And she wants to help these kinds of Mizrahi Jews reclaim a culture that has been ostracized. And rather than just explain Mizrahi culture to others, she pulls people into her narrative using shared emotions. So one does not have to be Mizrahi to understand her story and find something in common with her. And when I think about Moses' final words to the Israelite people in the book of Deuteronomy, as they enter into the land of Israel, I think of shared emotion. The Israelites had a shared memory, one that has not only been canonized, but told over and over for centuries thereafter. And that story, the story of the Jewish people, is what fuses all of us together till this day. And as we know, our Torah portions and prayers and liturgy are filled with opportunities to engage emotionally, because emotion is not only universal, but it touches us beyond words, ideas, and concepts. Emotion is a gateway to empathy and understanding. And we know emotions are powerful. They can separate us or they can bring us together. When Moses, in a fit of frustration, strikes the rock to get the water for the complaining Israelites against God's command, it is this grave error which holds him back from entering the land of Israel. He is still part of the Israelites, but he cannot enter with them. And when I think about our country today, divisive, and people rush to categorize others, it pains me. We become accustomed to disengaging emotionally. Don't be too emotional, rather than finding of moments of connection through emotion. And we all experience them, and to pretend that we don't sets us back. Adi touches the lives of people she never anticipated because she found a way to communicate an idea in addition to sharing her own narrative and raise awareness around intolerance. Our Torah doesn't shy away from words of emotion and passion, expressing love, anger, frustration. Emotions were the reality of the lives of our ancestors, which is no different than our lives today. And in the weeks to come, as we engage with Dvarim, with the book of Deuteronomy, and the words and the ideas, I really want us to try to find the emotion behind our actions and behind the actions of others. And when we find that people behave in a way that isn't pleasing to us, we must take a moment and pause and try to place the emotion behind their actions or their words. In this way, we keep our frustration at bay, but also better understand who that person is and how we can come closer together. Last week, at the end of the book of Numbers, we said, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek, be strong, and let us strengthen one another. And I truly hope that we start the book of Deuteronomy by strengthening one another. At this time, while we have the words and the feelings and emotions of our Torah, I'd like to take a moment and think about those who are in need of an extra prayer, a prayer of healing for their mind, body, or soul. If you are thinking of anyone who you would like to share their name out loud, I invite you to do so at this time. To those names, we add Leo Durant, John Goodman, Amelia Hegarty, Maddie Jefferson, Lane Freeman, Kathy Seamus Meyerson, Richard Moore, Betty Pickus, Bob Shippey. We continue with the Mishaberach, found on page 253. I invite you to please rise as we join together for the Aleinu on page 282. Aleinu l'shomer l'adon ha'kol, ha'zeh t'yula l'yotzer b'reshit, shema seated. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone, and so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest tonight, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This time we turn our thoughts and our hearts to those who are no longer with us, but we still hang on to their memories inside. If you are in a period of Shiva, Shloshim, or commemorating a yahrzeit, I invite you to say the name of the person you are thinking of at this time. To those names we add those individuals who were laid to rest this week: Lev Krasilishakov, Loretta Shames, Nancy Schneider. We also think of those who were laid to rest in the last 30 days: Irving Brown, William M. Goldstein, Jeffrey L. Korach, Byron Krantz, Shannon Stasiak. And it's the yahrzeits that fall at this time: Sylvia Foldy Asherman, Sophie Auerbach, Judith Dorfman Bass, H. William Beechler, Peter Basito, Isidore Bernin, Lila Grossman Claren, Ray Sonnenberg Cohen, Sue G. Crystal, Julia Stegner, Bernice B. Weltman Eisenberg, David A. Fowler, Eulalia Ruth Friedman, Pearl Fried, Ann Friedman, Ruth S. Friedman, Elliot N. Foldauer, Patty Copeland Glickman, Eleanor Schmidt Gluck, Jacob Golden, Rose Golden, Lee Goldman, Henrietta Mandel Goodman, Toby Goodman, Violet M. Goodman, Diana F. Gross, Jonathan Lee Gross, Louis N. Gross, Morton Heiser, Karen M. Heller, Dr. Jacob R. Heller, Robert L. Horowitz, Sam Horowitz, Rix Oster Young Horowitz, Seymour Kasimoff, Leo Keller, Joan M. Klein, Regina Klein, Joseph Kraselski, Isidore H. Levine, Meyer Lurie, Dr. Irving Miller, Leonard L. Mishkind, Ethel L. Morse, Esther Bergman Opper, Merle M. Perlman, Harry Pessel, Louis Pocras, Martha Rhine, Muriel Robbers Rick, Dorothy Rivets, Norman Roman, Charles Rudman, Sidney F. Rose, Jeanette E. Schwartzberg, Ralph M. Seed, Maurice H. Shapiro, Lottie Shurak, Max Smith, Dr. Solomon S. Sag, Samuel M. Sokol, Bernard H. Spiegel, Hannah B. Stoddard, Carl Tobias, Ruby Trobe, Celia Weinberg, Emma Weinberger, Ernestine Weisskopf, Sarah Weiss, Anna Roth Weitz, Herbert Zipkin. If at this time you are in a period of Shiva or have lost someone in the last 7 days, I invite you to please rise. If you are in a period of Shloshim or have lost someone in the last 30 days, I invite you to please rise. If you are marking a yahrzeit at this time, I invite you to please rise. And as a caring community, we rise as one together and join in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ועלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלם הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. May their memories be for a blessing, and together we say, you may be seated. Even in the most difficult times and the saddest times, we always think of joyful moments. Does anybody have a Shechianu moment, something they want to celebrate with the community and share with us this evening? Don't all rush at once.
Birthday? An anniversary?
Well, I'm going
Winning
to volunteer.
lottery ticket?
Well, okay, at the risk, maybe I'll get yelled at for this, but David Crumruth and his wife Wendy will be celebrating their 26th wedding anniversary next week, and we celebrated last week.
How lovely, 26 years.
So for those who are listening at home, if they didn't hear, David and Wendy Kornbluth celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Mazal tov. Beautiful.
Yes. Mazal tov on your 15th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday to you. Beautiful.
Do you feel really embarrassed? Am I making it worse?
Happiest
Mazel
birthday.
tov. If you want, I will take you out for a cup of coffee. Just you and me. Our teenagers are coming home on Monday? Tuesday. Wonderful. We have some teenagers who are in Israel, and they are, God willing, coming home on Tuesday. We can't wait to hear about their adventures.
That's very exciting.
It is very
It's
exciting.
wonderful.
Well,
Let's sing a Shehechianu.
let's sing a
Please help
Shehechianu.
us. Join us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו בקדמן והגיענו לזמן הזה. Before we do our closing song, we have some announcements. We have some very exciting things
We have
happening.
some very exciting.
So many things.
Take it away.
I will take it away, and then I'm going to give it right back.
Okay, I
Okay.
will catch it.
This coming Wednesday, I hope you'll be able to join us. I'm actually going to ask you to introduce part of this and say a couple of words about our speakers. We have a panel of very special individuals coming in to talk to us about the recent decision regarding Roe versus Wade, what that means for us, what that means for our community, and what we can do about it, what we can do in the future, and what are some of the changes that are happening. Cantor, will you tell us a little bit about our guests?
Sure. So this Wednesday, 7 p.m., we're going to be here in the chapel, and we have a panel of 4 from similar and also some different areas. We will have on the panel Rabbi Yael Dadoun, and she will be adding some information about the Jewish viewpoint on this topic, which is very interesting and sometimes challenging. But
always.
very interesting, and I think that will help really complete the panel. The other members of the panel are Dr. David Burkans, who has been a longtime member of the medical community here in the area of obstetrics and gynecology. Also, we have attorney Ian Friedman, who will be joining us from his law firm, his practice, and he's also an adjunct professor at Cleveland Marshall Law School. And the fourth person that we just found out we're very excited to welcome to the panel is also a professor of law at Case Western Reserve University. Her name is Jessie Hill, and she has been spending a great amount of time in this specific area. So we would like to invite everyone who's in this room, everyone who's watching us on live stream, and not just you, but for those of you who have children or grandchildren who are of an age old enough to understand the conversation, we think it's important for them to be here as well. So please join us. We anticipate we will be in this room. If for some reason the numbers get too big, we will move into the sanctuary, but we will be here. The event will also be live streamed. And if you missed it, the in-person or the live stream event, you'll be able to see the live stream in our archives on our temple website. This is a really important conversation. After our experts, our panelists present, there will be time for questions, and we hope answers that will be helpful and meaningful to everyone.
And then on August 21st,
which is a Sunday, in the morning, is it at 10:30, Rabbi?
I think so.
We think 10:30 in the morning on Sunday. Yochi Rappaport, who is the executive director of WOW, which stands for Women of the Wall. The Women of the Wall movement is a very important movement in Jerusalem and throughout Israel for egalitarian rights at the Western Wall, at the Kotel. She will be here to make a presentation. Everyone, our congregation, the community, please bring friends. It should be really a stirring and very, very good presentation and conversation as well.
Yeah. What'd I miss?
I don't think you missed anything.
Okay. Wonderful.
We're going to close, though,
We are.
with a very beautiful song,
Indeed.
which pays tribute to one of my favorite cities on the planet. And also, I think it's very appropriate that we sing the song together on Tisha B'Av.
Amen.
And so, if you will, please join me as we sing Yerushalayim Shel Zachav. It can be found on page 356. Avir harim sulu kayayim, vireach horani, nisa beruach harbayim, nimkol va'amonim, uftardim adilan va'avan, shvuya b'chaloma, vayir asher badad yoshet, ubilibat choma, Yerushalayim shel zahav, v'shel nechoshet v'shor, alo lechol shirayich, ani kinor. Yerushalayim shel zahav, v'shel nechoshet v'shor, alo lechol shirayich, ani kinor. The olive tree that stands in silence upon the hills of time, to hear the voices of the city as bells of evening chime, the shofar sounding from the temple to call the world to prayer. A shepherd pauses in the valley and peace is everywhere. Yerushalayim v'shel zachav, v'shel nechoshet v'shor, alo lechol shirayich, ani kinor. Yerushalayim v'shel zachav, v'shel nechoshet v'shor, alo lechol shirayich, ani
Please join us for the Kiddush. If you are home and with a glass of wine, please.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shavat kodesho v'yahav ratzon inchilanu. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Please join us for the motzi, blessing over our bounty.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Amen.
I wish you all a Shabbat filled with peace, and truly may we know war no more, and find peace within ourselves and peace in our world. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Amen.